Alright, everyone out there in YouTube land. This is Darth Judicar, and I'm coming at you with my newest Versus series video. For this, my 9th video and my 4th Versus series, I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to pit two groups of individuals against each other for the first time, and I hope that you'll like it. I think I picked a couple of really good combatants. What I'm going to be doing is comparing the two combatants that are best suited to fight each other, and then determine overall based on who wins what category. Also, I won't be focusing as much on the bio section as I usually do, mostly because this is 4 combatants and I would rather not draw this out. So yeah, just sit back and enjoy the Emperors and the Enforcers. Born on the planet Naboo at least 80 years before the Battle of Yavin, the man who would become Darth Sidious, better known as Emperor Palpatine, was a dangerous and cunning adversary who plagued the Jedi Order mostly in secret for years. In his late teens, Palpatine was taken under the wing of the dangerous Muun Sith Lord Darth Plagueis. A member of the Order of the Sith Lords, Palpatine was named Darth Sidious by his master, Plagueis, who trained him in both the ways of the lightsaber and the ways of the Force, instructing him in order to create a corrupt government that he could take control of and bring the galaxy under the rule of the Sith. He orchestrated the Naboo crisis, which gave him the opportunity to overthrow Chancellor Valorum through a vote of no confidence, ensuring through sympathy for the plight of his people that he would become the next Supreme Chancellor. After which Sidious killed Plagueis, taking on the mantle of the Dark Lord of the Sith for himself. It was under his leadership that the true genius of the Sith Grand Plan was put into effect, an event known as the Clone Wars. This galaxy-spanning conflict plunged the Republic and the Jedi into a chaotic war that they had very little hope to win. At the same time, through his apprentice, Count Dooku, also known as Darth Tyrannus, Sidious controlled both sides of this war. At the end of the war, Sidious carried out the Sith Grand Plan, naming himself the Emperor of the First Galactic Empire and carrying out the Order 66, which began the Great Jedi Purge. Sidious finally met his end when he was killed by his apprentice Darth Vader when he was thrown into the reactor core of the second Death Star. His spirit, however, returned on a few occasions, possessing clones of his body, which was eventually destroyed, however, when he attempted to possess the young Anakin Solo. By the point of his death, Darth Sidious had become the most powerful Darksider in history, and was one of the most infamous and most dangerous leaders of the Galactic Empire. However, he was not the first Emperor to threaten the Jedi Order and the Galactic Republic. Born 5,000 years before the Battle of Yavin on the planet Nathema, the feared Lord Vitiate, better known as the Sith Emperor, started out as the son of a local Sith Lord and a simple farm woman. Even from an early age, after learning his true heritage, Vitiate was ambitious and powerful and managed to conquer an entire planet before he was 15. Unlike most of the Sith of his era, though, Vitiate did not take part in the power struggle between Naga Sadow and Ludo Kresh, nor did he participate in the Great Hyperspace War that followed it. However, at the war's end, Vitiate called together the surviving Sith Lords on Nathema, where he performed a great dark-side ritual, draining all the Sith Lords of their power, and Nathema itself of the Force itself, making him immortal. From there, he took the survivors of the genocide that followed the Great Hyperspace War and set off into the unknown regions. After traveling for decades, Vitiate and his followers settled on the planet Dromund-Kaas, where Vitiate formed the resurgent Sith Empire and declared himself the Sith Emperor. Vitiate then appointed the First Dark Council, which would carry out the day-to-day business of the Empire, but it would still ultimately answer to him. While these 12 Sith Lords ruled the Empire, the Emperor went into seclusion in preparation for his eventual plan to take down the Republic. For over 1,000 years, the Emperor would plot and prepare for his grand war. The Emperor also acted through brainwashed pawns like Mandalore the Ultimate, and more infamously, Darth's Revan and Malak, who waged their war against the Galactic Republic in an effort to find the legendary Starforge. He was later confronted by Revan along with Mitra Surik and Lord Scourge. However, they were betrayed by Scourge and Surik was killed, but Revan survived and was locked away by the Empire. Revan's attack, however, put Vitiate on the defensive against the Republic, and he put off his plans of a full-scale invasion for another 300 years. When he did eventually invade the Republic, the war was devastating, killing many troops and conquering many planets, as well as wiping out a good portion of the Jedi Order. It only ended when the Treaty of Coruscant was signed and the Cold War era began. It is not known how the Emperor eventually met his end, but he was defeated by the hero of Tython in 10 ATC. All we really know about the eventual fate of the Emperor is that he died sometime between then and 62 BBY, when he was referenced by Darth Plagueis as being one of the Sith that got the closest to immortality. In the end, while Vitiate eventually died, he was still one of the most dangerous and probably the most powerful of the Sith, the Old Republic era. And as powerful as these two individuals were, they still had their most powerful servants at their side. Originally the Jedi Knight and the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader was one of the greatest Jedi killers of all time. He was seduced to the dark side by Chancellor Palpatine, who offered him a way to save his wife, who he believed was going to die in childbirth. After being named Darth Vader, he was sent to the Jedi Temple to carry out Nightfall, an operation that would lead to the deaths of almost every Jedi Knight or Padawan or youngling within the temple grounds. He was then sent to the planet Mustafar, where he killed the Separatist leaders. However, he was then confronted by Obi-Wan Kenobi, who fought him and heavily damaged his body, requiring him to get massive cybernetic enhancements just to survive, including a ventilator and replacing all of his limbs with cybernetics. After his reconstruction, Vader became the feared enforcer of Darth Sidious's will across the galaxy and carried out many actions in his name. He was tasked with putting down many rebellions and insurgencies against the authority of the Empire, including the Antoans, and Gintis's attempted coup attempt against Sidious. It was during a mission to Kashyyyk that he tracked down the rogue Jedi Kento Merrick, who had been hiding there. However, after he managed to defeat Kento, he was surprised to find a young boy that was the son of the Jedi he had just killed. The boy Galen Merrick became Vader's first secret apprentice, Starkiller. He trained Starkiller so that he would be able to help Vader to overthrow the Emperor and take the mantle of Dark Lord of the Sith for himself. As a result, however, this apprenticeship led to the creation of the Rebel Alliance. Vader finally met his end after the fight with his son Luke Skywalker in the observation deck of the second Death Star. After Luke refused to kill him, despite the Emperor pushing him to do so, the Emperor attempted to kill Luke, but Vader grabbed him and threw him into the reactor core. The damage Sidious had done to him in that attempt, however, was extensive, and he died soon after in the arms of his son. While his son managed to redeem him in the end, Darth Vader is remembered as the feared right-hand man and enforcer of Sidious's will, but he was far from the first Sith Lord to serve as the enforcer of a powerful Emperor. Lord Scourge was a Sith pureblood male born on an unknown world in the years leading up to the Jedi Civil War. He was recognized at an early age as being Force sensitive, so he was sent to the Sith Academy on Dromund Kaas. In 3954 BBY, he was granted the title of Sith Lord and returned to Dromund Kaas in order to investigate a series of assassination attempts against Darth Nihilus, a member of the Dark Council. It was also during this time that he first encountered Revan, who was searching for the Sith Empire. He captured Revan with the help of Darth Nihilus and brought him back to Dromund Kaas for interrogation. However, Revan tried to turn Scourge against the Empire, and to an extent he actually succeeded, eventually convincing Scourge to help him escape from Nihilus's compound. Scourge assisted both Revan and Mitra Surik in their attempted coup against the Sith Emperor. However, he received a vision that convinced him that Revan was not the Jedi who would defeat the Emperor, and turned on them, killing Mitra and wounding Revan. The Emperor rewarded Scourge for his loyalty, giving him immortality and granting him the title of Emperor's Wrath, his personal hand and enforcer. But Scourge's loyalty was not absolute. After 300 years, he finally encountered the person he saw in his vision, known as the Hero of Tython on the planet Quesh. When the Hero of Tython eventually arrived on the station orbiting the planet Dromund Kaas, it was Scourge who confronted him in the name of the Emperor. While Scourge was defeated in this encounter, he survived, and the Hero of Tython, along with his companions, several other Jedi Knights, were defeated by the Emperor's will. However, at this point, Scourge revealed his true nature and helped the Hero of Tython escape from the imprisonment and enslavement by the Sith Emperor. He went before the Jedi Council and informed them of the Emperor's true plan, the total annihilation of all life in the galaxy, Jedi and Sith alike. Scourge assisted the Hero of Tython by directing him to planets like Belsavis, Voss, and Corellia, where the Emperor's plans were being carried out, and they managed to foil them. Scourge took part in the assault on the Emperor's fortress on Dromund Kaas, which led to the Emperor's defeat and him being basically put into a coma state instead of dying. Scourge's eventual fate is unknown, but he was arguably one of the most important figures in the Old Republic era because of his decision to turn against the Emperor, as well as his interactions with Revan and Mitra Surik. It's entirely possible that if it wasn't for Scourge's defection, the Empire may have succeeded in their plans on several planets. Darth Sidious was a human male of advanced age by the point of the Clone Wars, where we will be considering him. He suffered from extreme dark side degradation, leading to pale skin, deformed features, and yellowed eyes. However, that being said, he was capable of great feats of acrobatics and strength, despite both his advanced age and this degradation. This was most notable during his fights with Mace Windu and later Jedi Master Yoda, both of which were masters on the Jedi Council and were arguably stronger than him. While at this point he wasn't at his prime, he was still an accomplished fighter, and mostly through force augmentation was one of the most powerful Sith or Jedi in terms of physical abilities of his era. Vitiate was a Sith pureblood male who was over 1400 years in age by the point he encountered the Hero of Tython. Similar to Darth Nihilus, who I covered in an earlier Versus series, Vitiate was slowly degrading because of all the dark side energy going through his body, even more so than Sidious. As such, he was not as physically strong as other Sith of his era. I mean, he had some strength to him, but he was basically a spirit that had been divided up among different individuals. While he had a physical body, it was not as powerful as his spirit was. In the end, Vitiate was physically weak, which required him to change bodies frequently, and his spirit would actually destroy the bodies that he was in, so it was usually a temporary thing. Darth Vader was a human male in his 40s with extensive cybernetic reconstruction. As a result of his damage after Mustafar, he has several weaknesses in terms of physicality, such as the fact that he basically has to survive on a respirator. However, this, while a major factor, is something that he is able to compensate for. While he was forced to compensate for his deficiencies in speed and agility through the Force, he was able to use his cybernetics to his advantage by giving him nearly superhuman strength. And in addition, his cybernetics and armor gave him an advantage. He was able to take heavy blows that would have taken down anyone else, and to basically shrug them off, even losing limbs on more than one occasion and still being able to fight on. Vader was able to compensate for his weaknesses afforded to him by his cybernetics, and as a result was an accomplished fighter and a strong power duelist. Lord Scourge was a Sith pureblood male who was over 300 years in age. Even prior to becoming the Emperor's Wrath, he was a skilled combatant and was more than capable of holding his own in a fight. He was shown to be able to fight against members of the Imperial Guard and against Dark Council members on multiple occasions, including Darth Nihilus and Darth Zedrix. He was incredibly physically strong, which made him a dangerous opponent to fight, and this, compounded with his choice of lightsaber combat styles, made him devastating in a normal lightsaber duel. All in all, Scourge had many physical strengths but very little physical weaknesses, making him a devastating opponent in combat. As this is a group versus series, I will be pitting Sidious and Vitiate against each other, and Vader and Scourge against each other, as they are the ones that match up best, and then comparing the overall between the two based off of who wins what. In terms of physical ability, both Sidious and Vitiate are highly skilled Force users who have suffered Force degradation over the years because of their immersion in the dark side. That being said, Vitiate had suffered a lot more degradation than Sidious, and he was less willing to use the Force to augment himself. As such, I give Sidious the edge in terms of physical ability. As for Darth Vader and Lord Scourge, these two have kind of a recurring problem in this versus series. They are basically evenly matched for the most part. That being said, Vader's cybernetic augmentation, while it has its weaknesses, basically gives him a strong advantage in terms of strength, and he also is capable of speed, which while Scourge is capable of, he is less speedy than Vader is. As such, I give Vader the advantage in terms of physical abilities, but only barely, as Scourge can almost match him. While both teams are extremely skilled in terms of physical ability, I'm going to have to give this advantage to the team of Sidious and Vader. This is mostly on account of Vader's skills and cybernetics, but I'm not entirely sure how much of an advantage this will be against Vitiate. But still, the Galactic Empire Sith gained the advantage in terms of physical ability. Sidious was an absolute master at lightsaber dueling. While he rarely used it, he did master all 7 lightsaber combat forms. As he is capable of using the lightsaber, I will narrow down his chosen lightsaber combat forms. Form 1, Shicho, is the most basic form of lightsaber combat style. While it is not very good at facing a single opponent, it is excellent at facing multiple opponents, as Sidious showed when he fought against several Jedi Masters and bested 3 of them in a matter of seconds. He was also practiced in Form 4 Ataru, which incorporated acrobatics and used the entire body as a weapon. And while it could tire a user out easily, it was highly effective and very dangerous in combat. He also utilized Nyman, the 6th form of lightsaber combat, which he used to great effect to defend as well as attack, and to chain force abilities into his lightsaber strikes. And while he was shown only using it once, he was a master of Jarkai dual blade fencing, which he used to great effect against Darth Maul and Savage Opress. All in all, Sidious was a well-rounded and highly skilled lightsaber duelist. Now when it comes to Vitiate, he is significantly less skilled when it comes to the lightsaber. Now this does make sense. He does come from an era that is more about the Force and ritual than lightsaber when it comes to Sith. That being said, he does have a lightsaber combat form that he uses, Form 7 Juyo. This is the most aggressive form of lightsaber combat, and frequently draws on the power of the dark side, which makes it a highly offensive form of combat. This is usually augmented by a earlier form, but I don't know exactly what that would be in the Emperor's case. Basically, compared to other lightsaber duelists, Vitiate was lacking and did not have as much of a variety as many of his contemporaries did. Darth Vader was a highly accomplished lightsaber duelist who focused on combining power strikes with counters. As such, his focus was primarily on Form 5 Qian/Djimso with a heavy focus on Djimso. A powerful form of lightsaber combat, Djimso focused on redirecting attacks and creating openings in opponents' defenses, which would serve Vader well in any lightsaber duel. In addition, he augmented it with Form 3 Sarisu in order to defend against blasters and against lightsaber strikes, which Sarisu was known for. Vader was also a practiced hand at Makashi and Juyo, but he primarily focused on his skills in Djimso. All in all, Darth Vader was a highly accomplished lightsaber duelist and well earned his title as being one of the greatest duelists of his era. Now this is where it gets a little interesting. Lord Scourge has actually a very similar combat style to Darth Vader. While he uses different lightsaber combat forms, his use of them is in some ways almost identical to Vader's. Like many Sith of his era, his primary lightsaber combat form is Juyo. However, it is not his only style, as he is capable of using others as well. He could also use Sarisu to great effect, which allowed him to block lightsabers and blaster bolts effectively, and possibly even force lightning, but he never used it to that effect. He was also a practiced hand at Ataru and was capable of using its acrobatics and its ability to chain physical attacks in as well to great effect, which made him a dangerous opponent. All in all, while Scourge was not on the level of some other duelists throughout time, he was still a highly accomplished duelist and was capable of using lightsaber forms to great effect, even to fight off the best of the best that the Jedi had to offer. Now for Sidious and Vitiate, this is actually a fairly easy call to make. While neither combatant uses a lightsaber unless absolutely necessary, the fact is that Sidious has more at his disposal when it comes to lightsaber combat. Sidious just is capable of bringing more to the table than Vitiate is when it comes down to lightsaber dueling. As such, I give Sidious the advantage in terms of the Emperors as lightsaber combat goes. However, I'm not going to consider this a strong factor unless absolutely necessary. Now as for Vader and Scourge, while these two specialize in very different forms of lightsaber combat, in terms of combat, these two are actually almost completely evenly matched. They both are hardened power duelists who combine this with strategy and with defensive capabilities to block their opponent's lightsabers. This makes them dangerous in a duel, and Scourge's use of Ataru being stronger than Vader's gives him an advantage that really evens things out. As such, I declare them equals in terms of lightsaber combat abilities. Well, in terms of lightsaber dueling, we have one advantage and one draw. So this really kind of comes down to which team has the best in terms of lightsaber style. For that, I give the advantage to the Sith of the Galactic Empire because, well, they have the ability to use the lightsaber styles more effectively, especially with Sidious. While Sidious was a master of lightsaber dueling, he did not use it very much, but he was a absolute powerhouse when it comes to the Force. His telekinetic power was so advanced that he could lift multiple objects at the same time and hurl them at an opponent and catch them off guard and practically defeat them on that alone. His telepathy was incredibly advanced. He was capable of reading minds that are stronger than his and even attacking them using the Jedi mind trick to great effect and power. And that was just his standard abilities. His dark side abilities were overpowering. He could use Force Scream to unnerve his opponents. He could use Force Lightning so powerful that it could vaporize an opponent when it struck. And then there was Force Storm, which he could use to create a powerful, vast storm of dark side energy, which could basically tear apart space and time itself. And while he didn't use it very often and it required a lot of concentration, it was incredibly powerful. He was also capable of midichlorian manipulation and was able to use essence transfer, which he used to cheat death and transfer to his own clone bodies. In the end, Sidious was an absolute powerhouse when it comes to Force abilities, and he was probably the most powerful Force user of all time when it came to the Sith. Okay, this is where things get a little complicated. Yes, Vitiate was powerful in the dark side, but most of his abilities came from powerful Force rituals, which required a lot of concentration and a lot of help. The ritual he has to drain the life out of a planet is basically something that he can't do on a whim. He can't do it as effectively as Nihilus could. It required a massive, long ritual that he was incapable of doing just whenever he wanted to do. That being said, he did use Force Lightning, and he did have some telekinetic and telepathic abilities, such as being able to brainwash others, but this wasn't as effective against stronger opponents, and I doubt it will come into play, but his Force Lightning probably will. All in all, while Vitiate was powerful in the Force, he did not really go beyond the usual scope of his time, and as such was really honestly not as powerful as later Sith Lords. Darth Vader was born with probably the highest Force potential of any Jedi or Sith in history. However, as a result of his cybernetics, he had less organic tissue, which made it difficult for him to use some Force abilities. And while he was capable of using Force Lightning, he would not use it because it would short out his cybernetics and potentially kill him. That being said, the Force abilities he could use, he used to great effect, and he was even more powerful opponent as a result. Probably most famously was his use of Force Choke, which he used to execute prisoners and officers that had failed him. But he took that to the next level. He used it to basically crush the heart of a person he was interrogating in order to inflict great pain while not affecting any of the other organs, in order to torture him until giving up information. His telekinesis was also incredibly powerful, as he could lift and throw objects without even moving his hands in the middle of a lightsaber duel. His telepathy was also powerful, and he managed to use the Jedi mind trick effectively as well. And while Vader was incapable of using the Force Lightning, he made up for it by using Kinetite, a powerful, charged kinetic attack that could break bones, destroy walls, and a lot of other things. All in all, while Vader was weakened by his prosthetics and cybernetics, he was still an incredibly powerful Force user. In terms of Force abilities, Lord Scourge was actually fairly standard. He had his telekinetic attacks that were of fairly strong caliber. He had Force Choke, which, while strong, was not the best. Notably, he was capable of using the dark side to cloak his presence, but that was not very effective in combat, so it's kind of a non-issue. He was also capable of observing the flaws and the problems that a person was facing after only a brief moment of contact, which was a strengthened version of its ability to interrogate. He could even discern whether or not a person was telling the truth. But more than anything else, Scourge had a powerful trump card. He was able to draw on the emotions of his opponent, which originally gave him a disadvantage against non-living opponents, but later was able to use to great effect. Despite this, however, Scourge was fairly standard and had nothing really special to bring to the table other than his ability to draw on his opponent's emotions. In terms of Force abilities, there is very little question as to who wins between Sidious and Vitiate. Vitiate is a powerful Sith Lord, except for that for the most part he did not evolve past the standard of his era. Sidious, by contrast, was someone who used the Force to great effect, primarily with the dark side and even some standard abilities, which made him a dangerous opponent for anyone to face. And as powerful as Vitiate's ability to control minds is, he would not be able to use it in a practical fight against Sidious, who is considerably stronger than he is. In the end, I give Darth Sidious the advantage in terms of Force ability. Now, as for Vader and Scourge, with these two we have two combatants who focus more on their lightsaber abilities than their Force abilities. However, both of these individuals are capable of using the Force to great effect and are more than capable of fighting off an adversary that is on the other's level, considering the fact that they are almost equal. So honestly, it comes down to each other's trump card. Who would win in a fight between someone with Vader's ability of Kinetite or Scourge's ability to draw on the opponent's emotion? In the end, I reached the conclusion that Vader has the advantage because of Kinetite, and this gives him a possible advantage in the fight that will probably lead to the end of Scourge. Darth Vader gains the edge in terms of Force ability. Darth Sidious's lightsaber was a standard design with special grips so he can use it with multiple styles. Like traditional Sith lightsabers, it utilized a simple synthetic lightsaber crystal of the red color. The only thing truly remarkable about it was that it was made with an electrum finish, which was a rare metal that was only given to the most highly ranked Sith and Jedi. He also had multiple lightsabers, but they were mostly used only against multiple opponents if necessary, and I will not be considering this at the time. Vitiate had a lightsaber of a standard design for his time and honestly afforded him no real advantages or disadvantages. It was of a standard design and had a red synthetic crystal, and honestly there's not really much else to say about it. Given that he preferred the act of sorcery and the Force itself, it is somewhat surprising that he even bothered using a lightsaber, but I digress. Darth Vader had a standard lightsaber that was specially designed for Djinn-So specialists like himself. It had a red synthetic crystal, and other than being specialized for a Djinn-So master like Vader, it really was unremarkable. However, there is something worth mentioning about it. It has a dual phase capability, which means that he can make the lightsaber longer with the flip of a switch, which makes it actually considerably more powerful. Lord Scourge had a standard lightsaber of his era with a red synthetic crystal. Much like Vitiate's, it had nothing particularly remarkable about it, and there's really not much else to say. So yeah, this category is unusual. Sidious's lightsaber is standard, but it is customized so he can use it with all of his forms, while Vitiate just has a simple lightsaber. As such, I give Sidious the advantage in terms of equipment, but only because his lightsaber is more customized than Vitiate's. As for Vader and Scourge, much like Sidious and Vitiate, these two are basically even in terms of lightsaber, but the one advantage is Vader's customization as well as his use of a dual phase blade. As such, I'd give Darth Vader the advantage in terms of equipment, but only barely. Okay, this category is actually rather difficult to call because, well, these four combatants basically have the same weapon with some minor modifications. As such, I have no choice but to declare them equals in terms of equipment. Well, it all comes down to this, so let's set the stage for this battle. As a location, it will be set on the Imperial Palace on Coruscant during the height of the Galactic Empire. Vader will be there to provide a report on the situation with the rebels when suddenly the doors are thrown open. Vitiate, through one of his voices, will storm in with Scourge in tow, declaring Sidious a false emperor and an improper heir to the Sith legacy. Sidious, unimpressed, would blast Vitiate with a burst of Force lightning, catching the ancient Sith Lord off guard and beginning the battle between the emperors, while at the same time Scourge and Vader confronted each other in a lightsaber duel. As the battle continued, the two Sith Lords would continuously blast each other with powerful bursts of Force lightning and telekinetic attacks, but Vitiate would slowly realize that he was outmatched in this and would attempt to take control of Sidious's mind with his brainwashing. Sidious, however, would laugh off the telepathic attack and blast Vitiate with another torrent of Force lightning. Only then would the two Sith Lords draw their lightsabers, and so would begin their lightsaber duel. At the same time, with Vader and Scourge basically evenly matched in terms of lightsaber dueling, they have resorted to combining their lightsaber attacks with Force attacks. However, Vader has the upper hand this time, as he has much more experience in chaining Force attacks into his lightsaber sequences. Finally, Vader gathers up enough strength to hit Scourge with a burst of kinetite, sending the opposing Sith Lord flying into the wall. The weakened Emperor's wrath tries to get to his feet as he feels a crushing sensation around his heart. Despite the fact that he has become used to pain, this pain is unbearable as Vader squeezes his heart until it bursts, leaving the Emperor's wrath, Lord Scourge, dead at his feet. As Sidious and Vitiate's duel has been progressing, it is becoming blatantly obvious that Vitiate has the disadvantage in this fight, as he is incapable of fighting with a lightsaber effectively. Sidious, on the other hand, is an extremely powerful duelist. He counters every one of Vitiate's power strikes. He manages to hit Vitiate numerous times with Force Lightning, and it manages to basically push the ancient Sith Lord to his knees. Vitiate is terrified. He had always attempted to avoid death, but it was staring him right in the face as Sidious raises his lightsaber, bringing it down on the ancient Sith Emperor and killing him in one swift stroke. Master and apprentice stand over the dead bodies of their would-be murderers. Vitiate, having escaped death before, attempts to do so again with his essence, but it is swiftly destroyed by Sidious. In a rare moment of respect for those that came before them, the two Sith Lords bring the bodies of Vitiate and Scourge to Korriban to be buried with their fellows. Vader asks who Vitiate was, and Sidious simply says that he was the Sith Lord that almost achieved immortality. In the end, I declare Darth, Sidious, and Darth Vader, the Sith Lords of the Galactic Empire, the victors. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Kinda hard to believe this was my longest video to date. If you disagree, that is your opinion. Feel free to leave a comment if you think that Vitiate and Scourge could have won, but I kind of doubt that they would have. I hope to see you next time. My next video is going to be another Versus series. It's going to be something a little special for my 10th video, but I'm not going to give anything away. See you then. Bye.